expectations in that communication.
I just had another question. It was good has anything changed in these moving forward since the Planning Commission workshop?
No, the Planning Commission, so these are all consistent with what we discussed with the Planning Commission.
And it was good to see at the Planning Commission meeting that there was a developer there that did respond to, these recommendations. So my question is, the DRB is, and I think staff has also held to timelines for review once an application is submitted, correct?
Correct.
And that would not change?
That would not change.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Obviously, less process in terms of getting it ready for DRB, less time. So we can come back to this. I did want to, because we didn't quite get to it and we're short on time tonight, I did want to hit on the encouraging and integrating accessory dwelling units. This was identified even back as a condition of approval when Metro did the urban growth boundary expansion of something they really wanted us to explore. And I mean, Wilsonville has allowed ADUs pretty generously for years. I mean, there's a policy of waiving SDCs since they're accessory to the primary dwelling, and we've allowed them pretty widely. And we've seen some uptake, not a lot. Recently, there's been more than, I think we've seen more approved in the last couple of years than we have ever. And so there's growing interest in them. But still, as part of this, because of that, actually a specific part of the master plan was really to look at accessory dwelling units and the opportunity to provide both kind of stair-free or more mobility-friendly housing opportunities that are also more affordable. And also, another change we've done recently, so state law doesn't allow us to require any parking for ADUs anyway, so our code already doesn't require any parking for ADUs. And that comes from House Bill 2001, the middle housing rules. Also, there's the Senate bill that we incorporated into our middle housing code that allows ADUs to actually be partitioned off, the land partitioned off and sold separately without necessarily meeting all the zoning setbacks. That allows kind of this creation of a unit of land that allows the transfer, so providing more ownership opportunities. So both from state, local, and the regional, the encouraging ADUs is something that can provide a lot of opportunities in a growth area like this. So we wanted to focus that. And again, similar to the multifamily, as we went through this, the changes that were recommended as it relates to Frog Pond East and South also make sense citywide. So the big change is the allowance for ADUs in regards to townhouses. So historically, Wilsonville has allowed ADUs for detached homes, but we've also allowed what we used to call detached single or attached single family, for what we see a lot of in Charbonneau, where you have the, single family homes for all purposes, but they have a shared wall. And so what the code says currently is that we allow ADUs for townhouses only when the townhouse lot meets the minimum lot size for detached homes in the zone. So now if you have a townhouse that's like on a 1,200 square foot lot, let's say in Villebois, you couldn't have an ADU, but if that townhouse is on a 2,500 square foot lot, which is the minimum lot size for a detached home, then you could have an ADU. That's how the code is written today. What this would do is allow ADUs for all townhouses, which are something that developers have expressed interest to. We've seen examples in this community and others where, for example, one common way that this is done is the ground floor is maybe a garage and an ADU, and then there's a full unit in the two upper stories of a 3-story townhouse. The other is to remove additional review process for ADUs. Currently, the code requires an additional administrative review, even though it's the same process of the standard administrative review. It just adds an additional fee and review, which doesn't have much purpose. So we suggest removing that so it's consistent with the review of other housing types. And also something that is coming out in even some draft state standards I've seen, but also something that is a barrier to adoption is sometimes the primary dwelling will max out the lot coverage, the permitted amount of the lot that can be occupied by buildings, or is built to setbacks. So allowing some additional exceptions for lot coverage and setbacks would be a major step to remove barriers for them to be built on land that otherwise is really underutilized but could accommodate a dwelling. So in addition to those citywide changes, in Frog Pond East and South, we're looking at actually the way we classify, and we'll get into more of this in details, but I just want to, in future work sessions, but I just wanted to touch on this tonight, that there's specific provisions to, in our variety requirements to encourage them, that they can be used to meet certain requirements around housing variety that really encourages developers to integrate them in areas that are primarily detached homes in particular, or townhouses. So I will leave it at that and happy to answer any questions.
So on the ADU, let's say they convert their garage, and now they're going to rent it out. What about if down the road they want to convert that into a condo unit, so a different ownership? Are we addressing that?
So that's, condos can be created as it stands today. Someone could condoize that.
Okay.
There's some kind of state level barriers that certain parties are working on, clarifying and potentially changing. But yeah, you could condo either if it was a garage or if it was like the bottom floor of a 3-story townhouse, you could create a condo ownership situation.
Would that impact the parking standards?
That wouldn't impact parking standards.
You said would not.
Yeah.
Do the rules of an HOA supersede the permit?
So existing HOAs are a separate private agreement that oftentimes are still valid, not always, but